Hello everybody, Ollie here. It's been another lovely month on the channel. You've been leaving some fantastic comments, so let's have a look at some of them. So I did an episode on the ethics of crowdfunding and whether crowdfunding can compromise the value of art and the kind of problems that might arise when art is crowdfunded. And Felipe Hindi said that crowdfunding allows more niche creators to exist. They can carve out a little niche audience and that can keep them going. And definitely I think you're right when you say that. Certainly a project like mine, which is compared to a lot of stuff on YouTube quite ambitious and quite weird and out there and different in terms of the reasons for which I started the channel, I definitely think I've benefited from that sort of niche audience phenomenon. Certainly this show couldn't continue going without crowdfunding. I mean, you know, I'm sitting talking to you from a flat, which is, the rent is being partially crowdfunded by you. So yeah, I absolutely think you're right, you can carve out a niche audience, so yeah, good point. Corey Starkell left a great comment. They said that just because something is done for commercial reasons doesn't mean it's not artistic, and you used the example of the Sistine Chapel, and you said the Sistine Chapel wasn't painted for love of Christianity, which I thought was a great phrase. It's an excellent point. Like, certainly throughout history, a lot of art has been commercially motivated, or maybe not exclusively commercially motivated, but the commercial element that shapes it has always been there. In that episode we talked about the distinction between art and content, and I said I think it's more of a spectrum than a distinction, but I think you might be right. Maybe it's not even a spectrum, maybe it's like a grid. Maybe the relationship between something being art and content is a bit more complex, because I want to be able to say that something can be both. Jared Smith, as well as quite a few other people, pointed out that patronage, like on Patreon, is a very, very old idea that goes back all the way to the ancient Romans. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you said that kind of in the context of, so there's no problem with it. And yeah, I see where you're coming from there. The article we were talking about that spurred the discussion came from Jacobin, which is a socialist magazine. So I'm guessing that the author of that would probably say, well, you know, just because the world's always been that way doesn't mean that it should or that it has to, and they might come back to you on that. But I do think that's a good point to put it in the historical context. This guy says, you must get a lot of sex, dude. Good for you, nerd. Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I'm in a pretty healthy sexual relationship at the moment. Me and your mum are very open and communicative about the kind of sex that we want and the kind of sex that we need, and yeah, I'm not going to deny that's definitely an element to our relationship, and you know, your mum's a wonderful woman, and I think I'm a very lucky guy to be having sex with her as regularly as I am. I'm just teasing you. Vasilevsky88 said that they don't really have a problem with crowdfunding companies profiting, and it's not so much just profiting that the author was talking about so much as profiting from a status quo in which people are kept from things like legal aid and medical care. You know, they're profiting from situations in which people have to crowdfund their medical bills. So it's kind of profiting off structural violence that I think he has a problem with, rather than just profiting per se. Hey, speaking of crowdfunding, thank you very much to all the generous people who've helped me out this month on Patreon. These are my top patrons, you can see their names here. Thank you to everyone else, all your names are in the description, and all the people who chose to donate anonymously. If you can give even just $1 a month, it massively helps me out and it keeps me and the show alive. So then I did an episode, and this was really fun, on whether having children is wrong. It's one of the most requested episodes I've ever done on anti-natalism, and there were some really good comments. Micah Mackie76 said that intelligent, spiritual people don't have children, and you cited Jesus and Buddha as not having kids, and well, I don't know, like Gandhi had kids, Muhammad had kids. I mean, I don't really know what your criteria are for somebody having intelligence and spirituality, because, you know, I don't really have either of those myself, so I don't really know what the rules are for that, but I think you could probably come up with a few counter examples as well. And also, I mean, the example of Jesus and Buddha, if they didn't have kids, we don't know that they chose not to have kids. Like Jesus, assuming Jesus didn't have any children, then it might have been because he didn't have time, because he's, you know, pretty busy, or, you know, he might have been gay, who knows. Jacob Einstein said that if intelligent people stop having children, then overall humanity's intelligence will decrease and we will devolve. That, okay, apart from the fact that that would seem to license eugenics, which is very, very bad, that assumes that intelligent people are only born to intelligent parents, which is not correct. I mean, that overlooks all the kind of access to schooling, access to support, access to healthcare, all these other things that can really determine whether somebody turns out intelligent. Like, I was lucky enough to go to a good school, but that wasn't just because I passed the exams. Like, I passed the exams because of a particular home life and because of a particular resource base that could send me there. So in the nature versus nurture debate over what makes people intelligent, you you've kind of completely ignored the role of nurture there, and completely ignored the role of luck as well. Josh Meyer was after some clarification about the difference between a life worth beginning and a life worth continuing. In your comment, you seem to kind of not really understand or want some explanation of the difference between that. So David Benatar, the philosopher we were talking about, does make that distinction. He says that from the point of view of non-existence, like if you're choosing whether or not to embark on being born, you will miss out on pain, and because you don't exist, you won't care about missing out on the pleasure. But if you are currently alive and you are killed, yes, you will miss out on all future pain, but you will also miss out on all future pleasure. So do you see the distinction there? Like if somebody's already alive and you kill them, they miss out on future pleasures. But if somebody doesn't exist and you decline to bring them into existence, then they don't miss out on anything because there is no they. The other philosopher we talked about is called Christine Overall, and B. Quimby just wanted to know a little bit more about her book. So she talks about the ethics of parenthood generally, so she goes into like pregnancy and abortion and child support, the liberties and duties that come with being a parent and people's attitudes towards raising kids. So it's a really interesting book. I do recommend checking it out. There's a link to it below that video that I did, the one on children, and if you use the link that's next to it in my video description and you buy it, then I get a percentage of the sale, so you'll be helping me out as well. Alan W. shared their experience in the comments as somebody who has been sterilised and who can't have children, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for sharing that experience. That was really, really cool of you. It gave good insight. I didn't know the context by which that happened because you didn't specify it in your comment, so I don't want to presume, but I just wanted to say that's really cool of you, and thank you. Always welcoming people sharing their personal experience, because philosophy shouldn't just be about, oh, it's the theory, it's the theory. Like the whole point of theory is that you then plug it into the real world again and you change the way you live, so thank you. Those are all the comments I've got time to look at this week. Thank you very much for leaving them, and I look forward to reading next month's comments, which I'm sure will be just as insightful and lovely. Don't forget, patreon.com/philosophytube is where I could really, really use the help to pay the bills for rent and electricity and, you know, research materials and so on. That would really, really be useful. Even just $1 a month is absolutely invaluable. And don't forget to subscribe.